it's the same standard?
Very difficult to, Jim, very difficult to answer that question. But what I would say and what I've seen this season in this division is there is some strong teams. There was a lot of money spent in the summer from teams in our division that probably you didn't see in League One. So it's difficult to answer that question. But what I would say, I think League Two is probably the strongest that it's been this year for many a year. And it's going to be an almighty task to try and get out of this division. But we're all trying to meet it head on and trying to improve all the time. So it's I know that doesn't really answer your question, mate, but it's a difficult one to answer.
Yeah, and I suppose, Grant, I know obviously the focus is very much on Doncaster Rovers, but as a manager, you have to take perspective. Obviously, all times you're looking at the opposition, but the figures for Michael Mellon in terms of the return ratio: 18 matches, 11 goals so far this season, and we're not even into basically December at the moment. He's looking possibly he could go for 20 at least, or even over at that. And to have a striker of that ability down in League Two, where a half a chance is a goal threat. And you mentioned about the mounting injury problems that you have as well. Does that make you sort of extra cautious, extra vindicated that you have a striker who's on sizzling form at the moment, that could probably be scoring at championship level the way he's going at the moment, and you're coming up against him now and no one's been able to sort of curtail him so far?
Well, yeah, look, the lad's in very good form, and I mentioned that he's scoring goals and doing well for the team, and not only his goals, his play, his movement has been strong for Morecambe. We also have two forwards that are in very good form, in Joe Ironside and Mo Fall, and I think they've got, I think it's around 21, 22 goals between them this season, as well as the goal involvements. We're probably talking in the region of 30 in all competitions. Including League and FA Cup and the Bristol Street Motors and that. So I know them two's in good form as well. So we focus on our own team. Yes, we'll be aware of Morecambe's threats, and Mellon is definitely one of them. But we'll focus on how we can hurt them. Where are we going to try and get a bit of an advantage on them, as well as hopefully trying to stop their threats, which is particularly at the top end of the pitch.
And obviously you can account for being a manager in the business a long time. We've seen a QPR, the transformation that is going on there with Marty Saventas coming in and red hot form at the moment. And when a manager comes in mid-season, November, December, is it sometimes easier really to hit the ground running in terms of coming in with a sort of clean slate to wipe that mentality clean? Or is it much better, obviously, to be starting at the start of the season, have everything in place? But sometimes as a manager, if the expectations are low, can you really come in maybe underneath the wave and maybe get a bit of form going straight off the bat?
I can only speak from my own experience, Jim, really. And I came in at Peterborough the first time at the start of the season, Doncaster at the start of the season, whole start of the season. But in between that, I came into Peterborough, I think January time or something like that, last season before last, and it's you can get an initial bounce and it's tough, but you're coming into a team that's maybe not used to how you're playing and how you want to play, and I think everything takes time. But the managers that can go into those clubs halfway through a season and get a tune out of them getting flying, and I tip my hat off to them, because I know for a fact how hard it is, and I know how tough it is to get people to buy into how you want to play, how you want to work. These things, in my opinion, take time. And to see a true identity of a football team, I think it definitely takes time.
And second last question for you, Grant, I suppose, well, an Irish question for you now, obviously. And in terms of competition for places, obviously, Louis Jones is the goalie. He's played most of the appearances so far in terms of the league. But Ian Lawler has made 7 matches so far for you this season. He's played under 19s. He's played under 21. Is that really, do you still fear that goalkeeping's jersey is up for grabs? And what has Ian got to do to maybe push Louis to make a bigger decision for you in the mind? Or is that a 60-40 call at the moment, or is it 50-50? Is Ian sort of pushing closer?
I think Ian's been very lucky, unlucky, Jim. He started the season very well. We didn't start the season too well, but Ian Lawler's form it was very good. He was making some big saves for us. He was commanding, and then he picked up an injury which kept him out for, I want to say, 2 or 3 weeks. And I've always been quite fair in terms of the goalkeeping department. I've got a really good relationship with Lawsy. Obviously, I've known him from my first time here, and I re-signed him again. So he understands Lewis is in top form. I had a conversation with him again the other day, and just to say, look, Lawsy, be calm. Hopefully, maybe your chance will come again, etc. But from my point of view, I hope Lewis keeps his form. But I know that things can move and manipulate, and I think previous clubs of mine have always never minded changing the goalkeeper if I felt was right and the benefit for the team. So we feel like we've got 2 very good goalkeepers here with a very good young goalkeeper underneath, and Ben Bottomley, who's out getting some games at the minute at Gainsborough. So I'm pleased with the goalkeeping department.
Okay, and Grant, final question for me. I'm not really going to go into it in much detail, but you mentioned there that you have a number of targets in January. I'm just sort of curious in terms of the way the Doncaster work in terms of the transfer market. Is the domino effect going to be very much in play in terms of teams higher up the league, in terms of what business they do, in terms of then maybe some of your targets might come available in terms of actions that are you not dependent on what other clubs, or some of your targets now that you're eyeing up for January, they won't be dependent on what those clubs get in themselves? Is it very much is the domino effect not in play for Doncaster Rovers and this upcoming January transfer market?
I would say a little bit of both, Jim. I would say a little bit of both. I said there's some targets and some clubs we've spoken to already, and we know that these players will be available. So when the club says they're available, it doesn't automatically means they're coming to you. You've got to obviously speak to the players, speak to the representatives. Can we agree in terms of the financials or whatever it may be? So it'll be a bit of a long process, as it always is. The good thing is here at this football club, we want to try and get things done early, and hopefully we can do that. The other side of it is, in terms of bringing players in, we may need to free up a little bit of space to do that also. I don't know until I sit down with the chairman and Gavin tomorrow and see what we have to move forward with. So there's a lot goes into, it's not just as easy as a fan in the street saying that we need this, and this, but we have to work around a budget. We have to work around what we've got to spend, what we haven't got to spend. Are these clubs going to let these players out? So there's a lot goes into it. So I know we've been working very, very hard for the last 4 or 5 months on potential targets. All we can do is present them to the board. Hopefully then it's up to us to go out there and try and get these players in.
Cheers, Grant. Great catching up with you again, mate. Take care.
Cheers.